John Miller straightened his blue uniform jacket and took a deep breath. The Galactic Council chamber stretched out before him, a massive oval room with tiered seating that rose up in all directions. Representatives from over 200 alien species filled the seats, their voices creating a background hum that echoed off the polished stone walls. For 7 hours now, John had sat quietly at the human delegation's table. 7 hours of being talked about as if humans weren't even in the room. The humans simply lacked the maturity to understand galactic politics, said Ambassador Zrith of the Xilarian Confederation, his 4 arms moving in elaborate gestures. Their recent expansion into the Ta sector demonstrates their aggressive tendencies. John's assistant, Susan Baker, leaned close. Sir, they're preparing to vote on the protective observation measure. If it passes. I know, John said. Earth would effectively become a quarantine planet. No interstellar travel without Council approval. No new technology without Council oversight. All because of a border dispute the Taurians had started in the first place. 50 years. That's how long humans had been part of the galactic community. 50 years of being treated as children. 50 years of watching other, younger species get approved for technologies that humans were repeatedly denied. The first speaker, a tall, willowy being with silver skin, called for order. We will now hear from the Taurian delegation before voting on the proposed measure. John stood up. He hadn't been recognized to speak, but he stepped forward anyway. The first speaker blinked all 3 of her eyes in surprise. Ambassador Miller, the human delegation has not been recognized at this time. Please return to your seat. I have listened to these proceedings for 7 hours, John said. His voice was calm but carried throughout the chamber. I have heard my species described as immature, aggressive, unpredictable, and dangerous. I have heard proposals to restrict our development and movement as if we were animals to be caged. The chamber grew silent. Even the Xilarians, known for their constant whispering, stopped to listen. For 50 years, humanity has contributed to this council. We have followed your rules. We have shared our culture, our art, our unique perspective. And for 50 years, we have been denied equal standing. The first speaker's skin rippled with color, a sign of discomfort. Ambassador Miller, this is not the proper time. There will never be a proper time, according to this council, John continued. When we ask for FTL technology, we're told we're not ready. When we request quantum communications, we're told it's too dangerous in our hands. When we defend our borders against aggression, we're called the aggressors. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. I came here today prepared to once again plead humanity's case, to once again ask for the respect we have earned, to once again be told to wait. Susan stood up beside him, followed by the other 4 members of the human delegation. Instead, I am here to inform you that as of this moment, Earth and all human colonies are formally withdrawing from the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted questions and objections. Some species with more volatile temperaments knocked over their tables. The Arxians, the oldest members of the council, simply watched in silence, their ancient eyes unreadable. The first speaker banged her ceremonial staff against the floor. Order. Ambassador Miller, you cannot simply withdraw. There are procedures, treaties, all of which include provisions for withdrawal, John said. The formal notifications have already been transmitted to the Council archives. Earth's borders are closed to all non-human ships as of 1 hour ago. He unpinned the silver Council emblem from his jacket and placed it on the table. Perhaps someday the Council will be ready for humanity. We will be waiting. With that, John turned and walked toward the exit. Susan and the rest of the delegation followed. Behind them, the Council chamber descended into chaos. As the doors closed behind them, Susan spoke quietly. They'll try to stop us. John nodded. They'll try. In the docking bay, their ship waited. Within 20 minutes, they were breaking orbit around the Council homeworld, leaving behind the institution that had held humanity back for half a century. The stars awaited. Captain Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force ship Intrepid. The view screen showed a sleek vessel approaching the outer edge of the Sol system. Its design marked it as Archean, one of the oldest species in the Galactic Council. "That's the third diplomatic ship this week," said Officer Paul Wright, monitoring the sensors. "They're persistent." Lisa nodded. "And predictable. Open a channel." The communications officer tapped her console. "Channel open, Captain." "Attention Archean vessel," Lisa said, her voice firm but not hostile. "You are approaching restricted space. Earth and all human territories are closed to non-human ships. Reverse course immediately." The response came quickly. "Earth Defense Vessel. This is Ambassador Krell of the Archean High Council. We come with urgent messages from the Galactic Council. The matters we wish to discuss are of vital importance to both our peoples." Lisa exchanged glances with her first officer, Ryan Jones. They had heard similar pleas before. "Ambassador Krell, our instructions are clear. No exceptions, no communications beyond this warning. Reverse course now, or we will be forced to escort you away." The Archean ship held position for several moments. Lisa could imagine the frustration aboard their vessel. The Archeans were used to being listened to, their age and wisdom respected throughout the galaxy. "Captain, they're powering up their engines," Paul reported. "Moving away at low speed." "Monitor them until they cross back over the boundary," Lisa ordered. "Then resume patrol pattern." 6 months had passed since humanity's withdrawal from the Council. 6 months of turning away ships, of maintaining strict silence, of letting the galaxy wonder what humans were doing behind their closed borders. Back on Earth, in a vast underground complex beneath the Rocky Mountains, Director of Technology Alan Hayes walked through a bustling laboratory. Scientists and engineers moved with purpose between workstations and testing chambers. The air hummed with energy and possibility. Alan stopped beside Dr. Frank Nelson, who was studying complex equations floating in a holographic display. "How's it coming?" Alan asked. Frank smiled, the first genuine smile Alan had seen from him in years. "We've solved the quantum stability issue. Without the Council restrictions on our research, we've made more progress in 6 months than in the previous decade." Alan nodded. Project Phoenix, the comprehensive initiative to accelerate human technological development, was exceeding even his optimistic projections. "The gravitational manipulation team is ready for their first full test," Frank continued. "They want you there." In another section of the complex, Alan stood behind a protective barrier with a dozen other observers. On the other side, a small metal sphere hung suspended in the center of a ring of equipment. Dr. Maria Wilson gave final instructions to her team. "Power at 20%. Focus the field." Equipment hummed to life. The sphere began to glow with a soft blue light. 30%. 40%. The sphere started to move, not in a straight line but in a curve, as if following an invisible track. "It's working," someone whispered. 50%. Initiate the phase shift." The sphere's movement changed. It no longer seemed bound by normal physics. It accelerated, decelerated, and changed direction with impossible precision. Alan felt his heart race. The technology they were witnessing, technology the Council had insisted was thousands of years beyond human capabilities, was working after just 6 months of unrestricted research. On the Intrepid, Lisa received a message from Earth Command. She read it twice to be sure she understood. "Set course for Jupiter Station," she told her navigation officer. "Maximum speed." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Something wrong, Captain." Lisa shook her head, a small smile forming. "Something right. The first phase of Project Phoenix is complete. We're being reassigned to test the new defense systems." As the Intrepid accelerated toward Jupiter, Lisa thought about the Council ships they had turned away. They wanted to know what humans were doing. Soon enough, they would find out. Catherine Wright frowned at the data streams flowing across her monitor. As a senior analyst for the Galactic Council Intelligence Division, She had spent the last 3 years studying every scrap of information about human activities. The problem was, there wasn't much to study. Got anything new? Greg Powell asked as he entered their shared office space. He carried 2 cups of a steaming blue liquid that passed for coffee among council species. Catherine accepted one with a nod of thanks. Same story. Our spy ships can't get within 2 light hours of Sol system without hitting those jamming fields. Greg settled into his chair. The fields shouldn't be possible, you know. Not at that range, not with that strength. Tell that to the 4 spy ships that came back with fried sensor arrays, Catherine said. She pulled up an image on the main screen, a visualization of energy readings taken from the edge of human space. Look at these patterns, she said. 3 years ago, the jamming fields extended barely past Mars. Now they cover the entire system and beyond. And these energy spikes here and here, they shouldn't exist according to any technology we know humans had access to. Greg studied the display. The council keeps saying humans are just having a tantrum, that they'll come crawling back once they realize how much they need us. Catherine zoomed in on one particular energy signature. Does this look like a tantrum to you? The pattern pulsed in ways that suggested incredibly advanced power generation, ways that should be impossible for a species that had only achieved faster than light travel 80 years ago. We need to warn them, Greg said quietly. Who? The council. Catherine laughed without humor. They've convinced themselves humans are primitive. They don't want to hear otherwise. On Mars Colony, Dr. Patricia Hughes stared through the observation window at the test chamber below. Inside, a small device no bigger than her hand sat on a pedestal. It didn't look impressive, just a metal cube with faint blue lines tracing its surface. Final checks complete, her assistant Sam Foster announced. All systems nominal. Patricia took a deep breath. Activate the field. Sam tapped commands into his console. The blue lines on the cube began to glow brighter. Field strength at 10%, he reported. 20. 30. The air around the cube seemed to waver like heat rising from hot pavement. 40%. 50. The cube began to rise from the pedestal, floating in midair. 60%. Gravity displacement is stable. Patricia watched in silence as the device continued to perform flawlessly. Her team had done it. They had created a working quantum gravitational manipulation device. Technology the Council had insisted was thousands of years beyond human capabilities. 70%. 80. The cube now spun slowly, completely free from Earth's gravitational pull. 90%. 100%. Full field strength achieved. Patricia finally allowed herself to smile. Begin the next phase. Sam entered new commands. The cube's rotation increased, and it began to emit a soft humming sound, creating localized gravity well now. Small objects in the chamber, tools, data pads, even a cup of water, began to orbit around the cube as if it had become a miniature planet with its own gravitational field. Field is stable. We've done it, Dr. Hughes. Patricia nodded, her eyes fixed on the miracle her team had created. Send word to Director Hayes. Project Prometheus is ready for integration with the Phoenix platform. As she watched the cube manipulate the fundamental forces of nature, Patricia thought about the council representatives who had patted her on the head, almost literally, when she proposed her theories years ago. They had called her work charming but misguided, explaining that humans simply didn't have the mental framework to understand such advanced concepts. Now her charming theory was working before her eyes, and those same council representatives had no idea what humanity had achieved. They'll know soon enough, she murmured to herself. They'll all know soon enough. The sensors on the small council science outpost in the Oort cloud began to chime urgently. Senior researcher Dale Abbott rushed to the monitoring station, where his teammate Olivia Ford was already reviewing the incoming data. What is it? Dale asked. Olivia pointed to the display. Something big just entered detection range. Moving fast, impossibly fast. Dale leaned in to study the readings. The object was massive, at least 2 kilometers in length, and it was traveling at a speed that should have been impossible for anything that size. "Is it on course to pass near us?" Dale asked. Olivia nodded. "It will come within visual range in approximately 20 minutes if it maintains its current trajectory." The 2 researchers called the rest of the small team to the observation deck. They adjusted the powerful telescopes to track the approaching object. As it grew closer, the shape became clearer. "That's a ship," whispered Carl Reed, another researcher. "A human ship." They had all seen human vessels before, but nothing like this. This ship was not only enormous but sleek, with lines that suggested it was designed for speed despite its size. It had none of the bulky engine sections or external power conduits that marked Council ship designs. "Can we scan it?" Dale asked. Olivia was already trying. "I'm getting strange readings. The energy signature is like nothing in our database. And the propulsion system." She trailed off, staring at her readings in disbelief. "What about the propulsion system?" Dale prompted. "It doesn't make sense," Olivia said. "According to these readings, they're manipulating space-time itself. This isn't standard FTL technology." The massive ship passed their outpost at a distance, just close enough for detailed observation, but far enough to make clear it had no interest in the Council facility. It continued on its course without slowing or acknowledging their presence. "Record everything," Dale said unnecessarily. Everyone was already doing exactly that. Later, in the main council chamber, Representative Richard Stone displayed the images and data collected by the Orc Cloud outpost. The chamber was filled with delegates from every council species, all watching with varying degrees of concern as the recording of the human ship played on the main screen. "This vessel was spotted 7 standard days ago," Richard explained. "It appears to be a human ship, though unlike any we have on record. Its size, speed, and energy signature suggest technological capabilities far beyond what humans possessed when they left the Council 7 years ago." Murmurs filled the chamber. The Taurian delegation was particularly vocal. "This is exactly the scenario we warned about," said the Taurian ambassador, his voice booming across the chamber. "The humans are developing unchecked weapons technology. We must take military action now, before they become an even greater threat." Several other species voiced agreement, but the Arxian elder raised a hand for silence. Despite being physically small compared to many species, the ancient Arxians commanded respect throughout the galaxy. "I recall," the elder said in a voice that carried despite its softness, "that when humans first joined our community, many of us advised treating them as equals. We noted their remarkable adaptability and creativity. We suggested that restricting their development might lead to exactly this outcome." The chamber grew quiet. The Arxians rarely spoke in full council sessions, preferring to work through intermediaries, but when they did, everyone listened. "The ship we observed made no aggressive moves," the Arxian continued. "It passed peacefully through space that, I might add, is not under council jurisdiction since the humans withdrew. Perhaps instead of discussing military action, we should be discussing how to reopen diplomatic channels." The Taurian ambassador snorted in derision. "And what happens when the next human ship doesn't pass by peacefully? What happens when they decide to use their new technology against us?" Richard Stone looked at the image of the human vessel frozen on the screen. In 7 years, humans had created something that should have taken centuries according to council understanding. What else had they built in their isolation? What else were they capable of? "I propose," he said carefully, "that we increase monitoring of the borders of human space. No aggressive actions, but full surveillance. We need to know more before we make any decisions." The vote passed easily, but Richard noticed the Arxian elder shaking his head sadly, as if they had already missed their chance. Council High Minister Elizabeth Sampson walked through the quiet hallways of the central tower. Though human herself, she had chosen to remain with the Council when Earth withdrew 10 years ago. Now in her 60s, with streaks of gray in her dark hair, She had risen through the ranks to become the first human High Minister. Her assistant, a young Silurian named Trev, hurried to catch up with her. Minister Samson, the message came through the Old Earth Emergency Channel. It's been verified as authentic. Elizabeth stopped walking. After 10 years of silence. You're certain? Yes, Minister. The encryption matches pre-withdrawal Earth protocols. She resumed walking, faster now. What does it say? Just that a human representative wishes to address the full council. They request a session tomorrow. Elizabeth's mind raced. 10 years of complete isolation, of turning away every diplomatic mission, of silence in response to all communication attempts. And now this. Has the first speaker been informed? Yes. She's calling an emergency meeting of the council leadership in 1 hour. Elizabeth nodded. Thank you, Trev. Please prepare a summary of all our intelligence on human activities over the past decade. I want it before the leadership meeting. In her office, Elizabeth read through the sparse intelligence reports. Despite the council's best efforts, they knew almost nothing about what humans had been doing since the withdrawal. Ships couldn't penetrate the defensive perimeter around human space. Probes disappeared. Even long-range scans were largely blocked or corrupted. The only real data they had came from the occasional sighting of human ships passing through distant sectors, always traveling at speeds that shouldn't be possible, always ignoring any attempts at communication. Hours later, the council leadership agreed to grant the human request. The next day, the council chamber was filled beyond capacity. Species that normally sent junior representatives had dispatched their highest officials. Even the Arxian elders, who rarely attended full sessions, were present in unusual numbers. A small, unassuming vessel approached the council station. It bore no insignia or markings, just a smooth, dark hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ship docked with minimal communication, following the directed path perfectly. From it emerged a single human, a man of average height, with light brown hair and unremarkable features. He wore simple black clothing with no decorations or symbols of rank. I am Daniel Scott, he said to the greeting committee. His voice was calm, pleasant even, but there was something in his manner that made even the usually talkative Silurians fall silent. Welcome to Council Station, Elizabeth said, stepping forward. I am High Minister Samson. Daniel gave her a small nod of acknowledgement. You chose to stay. It wasn't a question, but Elizabeth answered anyway. I believe I could do more good here than in isolation. Perhaps you were right, Daniel said. His eyes, Elizabeth noticed, were an unusual shade of green, almost luminous in certain lights. Though the path we chose has served us well. And what path is that? Elizabeth asked. Daniel smiled slightly. That's why I'm here. To show you. The first speaker herself led Daniel into the council chamber. The usual procedural formalities were abbreviated. Such was the eagerness to hear what this human had to say. You may approach the central platform, the first speaker told Daniel. He walked forward, seemingly unimpressed by the grandeur of the chamber or the hundreds of powerful beings watching his every move. My name is Daniel Scott, he began. His voice carried easily through the vast space. I am not a diplomat or a political leader. I am a scientist. I represent humanity's future. He held up a small device, no larger than his palm. With your permission, I would like to show you what humanity has accomplished in the decade since we left the council. The first speaker nodded her assent, and Daniel activated the device. A holographic display sprang to life above the central platform, filling the chamber with light. 10 years ago, Daniel said, you believed humans were centuries from achieving true technological independence. You were wrong. The hologram showed images of human settlements throughout the Sol system, vast cities on Mars, floating habitats in Venus's upper atmosphere, mining operations in the asteroid belt, research stations orbiting the outer planets. This is merely the beginning, Daniel said as the council members watched in stunned silence. Daniel Scott moved his hand, and the holographic display shifted to show new images. The council chamber remained silent as members of every species leaned forward to watch. In the past decade, Daniel continued, humanity has established self-sustaining colonies throughout the Sol system. Our population has grown to over 15 billion, spread across Earth, Mars, Venus, and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. The display showed vast domed cities on Mars with green parks and flowing water. It showed floating platforms in the clouds of Venus where people lived and worked. It showed massive habitats built into the moons of the outer planets. But our greatest achievements have been technological, Daniel said. The display changed again to show a ship unlike any the Council had seen before. It was sleek and elegant, with no visible engines or external power systems. This is the Dawn Treader, Daniel explained, the first of our new generation of ships. It uses a propulsion system based on quantum gravitational manipulation. A murmur ran through the Council. Many species looked to their scientific advisors, who appeared confused or shocked. Such technology is theoretical at best, said a Xilarian representative. Even our most advanced scientists estimate it would take centuries to develop. Daniel smiled slightly. Yet we did it in less than a decade. The hologram changed again, this time showing a medical facility where humans were being treated with devices that seemed to repair damaged tissue instantly. Our medical technologies have advanced as well, Daniel said. Human lifespans have been extended significantly. Diseases that once plagued us have been eliminated. He paused to let the information sink in. But perhaps most importantly, we have developed energy sources beyond anything the Council currently uses. The display showed what appeared to be a simple sphere, glowing with a soft blue light. This is a quantum energy core. A single core can power an entire city for a century. It produces no waste and requires no fuel beyond its initial activation. The first speaker rose from her seat, her silver skin rippling with emotion. These claims are extraordinary, Representative Scott. If true, they represent technological leaps that should have taken your species hundreds, if not thousands, of years to achieve. Daniel nodded. Under normal circumstances, perhaps, but the Council's dismissal of humanity created abnormal circumstances. When we left, our best minds were finally free to pursue research without restriction, without the need to conform to Council standards or wait for Council approval. He looked around the chamber. We did in 10 years what might have taken centuries because we had to. Because you gave us no choice but to rely entirely on ourselves. The display changed once more, showing something that made even the ancient Arctians gasp audibly. A fleet of massive ships, each larger than anything the Council had built, floated in the darkness of space beyond Neptune. This is the Exodus fleet, Daniel said. 50 generation ships, each capable of sustaining millions of humans for centuries of interstellar travel. The first ships have already departed Sol system. The chamber erupted in voices. Some demanded to know where the ships were going. Others called for immediate military action. Still others sat in stunned silence. The first speaker banged her staff against the floor, calling for order. When the chamber quieted, she addressed Daniel directly. Why have you come to tell us this? After 10 years of silence, why reveal these developments now? Daniel's expression remained calm. As a courtesy, you should know that humanity is not simply leaving the Council. We are leaving known space entirely. We are seeking our own path among the stars. You cannot simply leave, said the Taurian ambassador, his voice rumbling with anger. The Council has jurisdiction over all interstellar travel in this sector. No, Daniel replied. The Council has jurisdiction over its member species. Humanity is not a member, and our ships are already beyond your reach. He deactivated the holographic display. I came here not to negotiate, not to threaten, not to boast. I came to inform you of a simple fact. Humanity has moved on. The Arxian elder who had spoken in the previous council session rose slowly to her feet, her ancient eyes fixed on Daniel. Where are your people going? She asked softly. Daniel looked at her with respect. Everywhere, he said. The council chamber erupted into chaos following Daniel's presentation. Representatives shouted over one another, some demanding immediate action, others calling for calm. The first speaker's staff banged repeatedly against the floor, but the noise barely diminished. In a small conference room away from the main chamber, the council's executive committee gathered in emergency session. The room held the highest representatives from the 12 most influential species, along with Daniel Scott and Elizabeth Sampson. The Arxian elder, whose name was Lur, spoke first. "We must acknowledge our error in judgment regarding humans," she said. Her voice was soft but commanded attention. "We treated them as children when they were simply different from us." The Taurian ambassador slammed a massive fist on the table. "Different? They were primitive. And now they've used our own technologies against us." "No," Daniel interrupted calmly. "We didn't use your technologies. We developed our own. That's the point you still fail to grasp." The Xilarian High Counselor leaned forward, all four of his arms moving in the elaborate gestures of his species. "Mr. Scott, surely we can find a path forward together. The Council is prepared to offer humanity everything it asked for before the withdrawal. Advanced technologies, seats on the High Council, autonomy beyond what any other species enjoys." Daniel's expression didn't change. "You misunderstand. This isn't a negotiation. We're not asking for a better place in your society anymore. We're building our own." Silence fell over the room. Elizabeth studied Daniel's face, looking for some sign of pride or triumph, but found none. Just quiet certainty. "Then why come here at all?" asked the representative from the Volari Dominion. "Why not simply leave without a word?" "Respect," Daniel said. "Despite our differences, humanity spent 50 years as part of the galactic community. We felt we owed you the courtesy of an explanation." The Arxian elder nodded slowly. "And we appreciate that courtesy. But I must ask, does humanity intend to return someday? Or is this truly a final departure?" Daniel considered the question. "I don't speak for all humans, Elder Lur. Some may choose to maintain connections with the Council. Some of our colony ships may eventually establish contact with Council worlds. But as a whole, humanity has chosen a different path." "A dangerous path," rumbled the Taurian. "Unregulated technological development has destroyed countless civilizations. The Council's restrictions exist for good reason. Perhaps for some species," Daniel acknowledged, "but not for humans. We thrive on challenge and innovation. Your restrictions were suffocating us." Elizabeth spoke up for the first time. "The ships you showed us, the Exodus fleet, where are they going?" Daniel smiled slightly. "Everywhere. Some to nearby star systems to establish new colonies. Others much farther, using technology that allows them to travel faster than anything the Council has developed. Some are even exploring regions of space the Council has deemed too dangerous to approach." The executive committee members exchanged glances. The Volari representative leaned forward. "And what of the ships that remain in Sol system? What are their intentions toward Council space?" "We have no hostile intentions," Daniel said firmly. "We seek only to go our own way in peace." The first speaker, who had been silent until now, fixed Daniel with her three-eyed gaze. "And if the Council were to take military action to prevent your exodus, to bring humanity back under Council oversight?" A chill seemed to fall over the room. Daniel's expression hardened slightly. "That would be unwise," he said quietly. "Not because we wish for conflict, but because the technological gap between us is now far greater than you realize. The ships and technologies I showed you are only a fraction of what we've developed." He looked around the table. "We didn't come here to threaten. We came to say goodbye. To give you the chance to accept that humanity has moved beyond the Council's reach." The Arxian elder's ancient eyes held Daniel's gaze. "And if we wish to learn from humanity, to join you rather than bring you back." Daniel's expression softened. "Individual beings from any species who wish to join us would be welcome. But the Council as an institution has shown it cannot change quickly enough." The first speaker looked troubled. So this is truly the end of humanity's relationship with the galactic community. No, Daniel said. It's the beginning of a new one. Just not on the terms you expected. Laura Chen stood on the observation deck of her ship, watching as Earth grew smaller in the distance. 20 years had passed since Daniel Scott's famous address to the Council. Now, as the newly appointed Arxian ambassador to what remained of human territory, Laura had the solemn task of witnessing the final departure. Below her, on the planet where humanity began, the last major human settlement was being dismantled. Most of the population had already left, either to join the Exodus fleet or to settle on the transformed worlds of Mars and Venus. What remained were automated systems, caretaker AI, and defensive platforms that would guard Earth long after the last human had departed. "It's beautiful," said her assistant, a young Xilarian named Vex. "Even now, with most of the cities gone." Laura nodded. Earth still shone blue and green, though much of the planet had been returned to its natural state. Forests had reclaimed former urban areas. The oceans were cleaner than they had been in centuries. "They didn't abandon it," Laura said. "They healed it and left it to rest." Her ship's sensors detected a small vessel approaching from the surface, the last shuttle from Earth. According to the schedule, it carried the final group of human technicians who had overseen the dismantling process. Laura opened a communication channel. "Earth Shuttle, this is Ambassador Chen. I am here to witness and record the final departure as requested." The response came quickly. "Ambassador, this is Captain Steve Miller. We appreciate your presence. The shutdown sequence has begun. Earth's automated systems will maintain the planet, but no human will call it home for the foreseeable future." Laura watched as the shuttle docked with a much larger ship waiting in orbit. That ship, unlike anything the Council had ever built, would take the last humans from Earth to join their people among the stars. "Where will you go?" Laura asked, unable to contain her curiosity. There was a pause before Miller responded. "Beyond. That's all I can say. The paths we found lead to places the Council has never imagined." The large ship's engines began to glow with soft blue light. No flame, no visible exhaust. Just pure energy manipulating the fabric of space-time itself. "Captain Miller," Laura said, "as the official representative of the Galactic Council, I extend one final offer of reconciliation. The Council has reformed its policies. We've learned from our mistakes. There is still a place for humanity in the galactic community." Another pause, longer this time. "We appreciate the gesture, Ambassador. Some humans may return someday to reconnect with the Council, but most of us have found a different path forward." The ship began to move, accelerating with impossible grace for something so large. "Good luck," Laura said, "and thank you for the gift of your perspective." "The same to you, Ambassador. Perhaps we'll meet again in a few centuries." The ship vanished, not with the flash of traditional FTL drives, but with a subtle ripple, as if it had slipped between the folds of reality itself. Laura remained on the observation deck long after the ship had gone. She dictated her final report to the Council, choosing her words carefully. "Earth stands empty of human presence for the first time in hundreds of thousands of years. With this departure, we must acknowledge the truth that has become increasingly clear over the past 2 decades. We now understand what we've lost. Humans never needed our help. They needed our respect. By the time we realized this, they had already moved beyond us." She paused, watching the blue planet below. "The species we once thought too immature for the stars has become something we can barely comprehend. We don't know where they've gone or what they'll become, but I believe that someday, long after I'm gone, they will return. And when they do, the galaxy will be transformed." As her ship turned away from Sol system, the long-range sensors detected unusual distortions in space-time throughout the region. Evidence of doorways opening to places the Council had never reached. Humanity hadn't just left the Council behind. They'd found pathways to new frontiers beyond the Council's imagination. Laura smiled slightly as she finished her report, We thought we were guiding them. In the end, they showed us how much we still have to learn.